Hello everybody and welcome into this week's Devils in Detail Live.
We're wrapping up a busy weekend for football, soccer, and volleyball as they opened up conference play.
ASU football were big underdogs this past weekend as they faced number 24 Oregon at Sun Devil Stadium. Alyanna was at the game Saturday night.
The Sun Devils brought the heat against the Oregon Ducks in their 37-35 win in the conference opener. The ASU defense came out gunning, putting heavy pressure against Ducks QB Justin Herbert early into the game, forcing misreads and holding the Ducks to 14 points at the half. Freshman defensive back Chase Lucas played a large role for ASU's defense, recording 8 total tackles in his first career start.
7 plays going into halftime against a very good offensive team. I think that was a big difference in the game, was how well they executed. I think we put them in a couple of situations where, we shouldn't have put them in. I'm really proud of how those guys really went out there, like he said, with a chip on his shoulder, and really played their butts off, man.
However, Royce Freeman and the Oregon offense didn't let up in the second half, retaking the lead 35-34 in the fourth, before ultimately falling to a 24-yard field goal from freshman kicker Brandon Ruiz. But it was QB Manny Wilkins who led the Sun Devils offensive line with 347 yards and a touchdown.
Manny's is a leader now. I mean, he's an emotional leader. He's got a genuineness to him that I really like. And he's really learning and working hard to be better, manage the game. I thought he played really, really good.
When we're throwing quick game, it needs to be 100%. I need to put the ball in the right location and give these guys, these playmakers, an opportunity to run with the ball after the catch.
The Sun Devils will look to keep up their momentum on the road this weekend against Stanford. For Devils in Detail, I'm Alyanna Harina reporting.
We now welcome in Hunter Robinson to talk more about the Sun Devils. Welcome in, Hunter. It's your first time behind the desk, not hosting. What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot less stressful. I'm not envious of you at all.
That's true. Well, let's get right into it, all right? So Manny Wilkins, he's looked like a brand new quarterback through the first quarter of this season. He's got 0 interceptions on the year, and he broke the school record for most pass attempts without an INT. What have you seen from him that impresses you so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely his leadership quality. He's improved as a leader this season. Last season he was the starter. Basically, he had been told that he was going to be the starter, so there wasn't really that much of a quarterback competition, even though Brady White, I guess, kind of gave him a run for his money. At least that's what the media thought. But then this season, Blake Barnett coming in, that was a real test because they had no true. Blake Barnett, one of the best transfers in the whole country, and Arizona State was able to get him. That's a big deal for Arizona State, so they were going to give him a realistic chance to earn that starting job. But Wilkins, he stayed true to what he said he was going to do, even back all the way in the spring game. He said, I will be the starter when it comes to the fall, and that's what he did, and I think that winning that starting job outright has really just proven himself as the leader of this team, and I think everyone looks at him like the leader of the team.
That's true. Manny Wilkins, he talked the talk. He's certainly walked the walk so far this year. Flipping over to the other side of the ball, the defense has caught so much of fault, played one of the best games we've seen from in nearly 3 years. What is a key part of that, and do they have what it takes to keep up and play the same way against Stanford next week? Yeah,
I definitely think they have a chance against Stanford. Stanford, they have a weaker passing offense than in years past. So I think that with ASU's weakest part of their defense being the passing defense, it kind of lines up nicely for Arizona State. But going back to what has been the real change, it's really nothing more than just Phil Bennett coming in and saying, hey, we're going to play gritty, smash-mouth football, and he has proven that. And as the weeks have progressed, getting into Pac-12 play, the defense has steadily improved, even if the results weren't there. So now, luckily, at the start of Pac-12 play, we now have the defense where they're somewhat, I guess you could say, coming into form.
That's true. Bennett seems to be like a breath of fresh air, just a new energy around the program, especially in the defensive side of the ball. Now, for the rest of the season, this team, they're 2-2 right now. They have Stanford this next week, and then they get into really the meat of the Pac-12 schedule. What are your expectations for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, my expectations are them to definitely I think they're going to be in close games. I think that the offense has the firepower. You know, Wilkins having a great season so far, and they have finally learned how to use N'Keal Harry. Seems like it took them a few weeks, but they are finally getting to it. And I think that the offense has the firepower. It's just going to be up to the defense. Then they play Stanford, which I just talked about. You know, the defense kind of lines up nicely. So I do think they have a chance against Stanford. And then after that, they have their bye week, which will be a nice time for the defense to improve. You know, maybe the offense learning them a little more about themselves when it comes to the run game. The run game hasn't looked amazing over these past few weeks. And then after that, they face Washington, which will be a very hard test. And then they have Utah, which I've always said that Utah, you know, they play to the level of their competition. So when they face a Washington, when they face a USC, they're going to look like, oh, this really is, you know, a top 20 team, top 25 team. And then they play against Arizona State, and they just proved it this past weekend against the University of Arizona, and they're not going to look that amazing. And I don't think that any of us are looking at Arizona State saying, oh, they're a powerhouse. So look for Utah to play to, you know, the same level as Arizona State. So there's a realistic chance there against Utah. And then they have USC, which that's going to be like Washington, a very, very hard matchup, and I see a realistic possibility for them to go 500 over these next 4 games.
That's true. If they do play like they did against Oregon this past weekend, they really have a shot to beat anybody in the conference. Maybe USC and Washington. They might be a little too big there. But thank you coming on, Hunter. Great stuff as always. Follow him and the rest of the team on devilsindetail.com. We now send it over to Alyanna, who is with Bo Wilkinson to talk about the volleyball team's opening weekend.
Thanks, Killian. All right, Bo, let's just get straight into this. So the Sun Devils opened up their Pac-12 play this weekend against U of A, and then they were up 2-0 against Washington and then lost the match. What did you see from the Sun Devils this weekend?
Yeah, so like you said, it was a very rough weekend for the Sun Devils. Obviously, getting swept by your rival is never a good thing, but starting up 2-0 against number 7 Washington is, even though they blew the match, is really good for this young team to build experience and know that they can play with some of these better teams.
All right, so like you said, got swept by U of A and then started off gunning against Washington. What were the biggest differences between those two matches?
The main thing that Coach Tomasevich really was adamant about them needing to fix is their passing. And that is what they did do in the first 2 sets against Washington. But after that, in sets 3, 4, and 5, they just weren't able to pass the ball as well as they wanted. Another big thing was the offense of Okaro. She tied the school record with 30 kills in a game.
All right, so moving forward, they're going to face Stanford, number 2, reigning national champs. And the Pac-12 is such a competitive volleyball conference. What are you expecting to see from the Sun Devils moving forward?
Yeah, so the Pac-12 is a really tough conference, and it's hard to get wins no matter what. But they did show that they are able to play with some of the top-tier teams in the conference, as they took Washington to 5 sets, and they haven't gone to 5 sets at all this entire season. They got a big matchup against Stanford coming up, and it'll be interesting to see how they face up with the reigning national champions.
All right, well, thank you. Great stuff as always, Bo.
Thank you.
If you want more from Bo and the rest of the volleyball coverage team, make sure to visit devilsindetail.com. Now let's toss it over to Killian and Sam to talk a little women's soccer.
Thanks, Alyanna. I'm with Sam Ficaro here, and Sam will get right into it. The team has had a tough time scoring goals, but with their 6 goals in the last 2 matches, has this team finally turned a corner offensively?
It certainly looks that way. ASU, a big problem was there to where Graham Winkworth just said they didn't have that killer mentality in front of net. It certainly looks like right now against Oregon State they won 2-1. Gemma Perfield had a nice combination play with Jasmine Mater, and she scored the opening goal in the second half. And then Devin Kelsey had like a shot from 35 yards out that went off the bar and in across the goal line. So it was definitely a good performance from ASU. Well, the true test will come coming up. They'll have 4 straight matches against teams in the top 15. So.
And speaking of those matches, give us a little bit of a preview. 2 big games coming up this week as they face off with Cal and Stanford. What should we be watching for these matches? Yeah, it's going to be hard. Cal and Stanford are each 8-1. Cal is now 11th in the poll, and Stanford's number 2. So this will be by far the hardest opponents for ASU. These will be their first true road games in conference play. They've only played 1 true road game, and that was at San Diego State, and that game went to overtime. So Cal has done well. They've beaten Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. They've beaten some good teams, and so has Stanford. Stanford, their only loss came at Florida, who's also in the top 15. So ASU will definitely be tested. They'll have to finish their chances. They will not get as many chances they've had against Oregon State and in non-conference play. When the chances decrease, they got to take advantage of those chances. So
It'll be a tough test for ASU.
Yeah, big road test coming up. You got to score if you want to win those matches.
Exactly.
Thanks, Sam. Hockey season is almost here, and we have a Sun Devil hockey preview for you.
ASU hockey kicks off their season against Northern Alberta Institute of Technology in an exhibition game on Saturday. I'm here with hockey reporter Ethan Schmidt to talk a little bit about what to expect for the season. How's it going, Ethan?
Good. How are you, Alyanna?
Good. All right, so let's just get straight into this. ASU hockey was 10, 19, and I think 3 last season for their record. What are you expecting to see from the Sun Devils this season?
Well, Alyanna, you talked about it. Below 500, and in their first full Division I season, it was a rough one. A lot of penalties, a lot of mistakes, just things that I'm sure Coach Powers and the team have tried to work on over the off season. But they come into this season, their second full Division I season slate, and they take on 6, potentially 7 ranked opponents that are ranked in the preseason polls for NCAA Division I ice hockey. And the team has to have improved. There's no doubt about that. And Coach Powers is ready to take the ice with his boys, and he knows that they could compete at this high of a level, and that's what they made the jump for. And you bring back guys like Anthony Croston and Brinson Pashnuk. Croston led the team in points last season. Pashnuk, a really talented defenseman on the blue line for this Sun Devil hockey team, and led the team in block shots. And you bring back goaltender Joey DeCord. A lot of players stepping up and taking on this challenge of playing these tough teams like Penn State, Boston College, Boston University, etc. And it's just only can go up from here.
I did hear that Joey DeCord is favored to start as a goalie this year for the Sun Devils. But let's talk a little bit about the new guys. The Sun Devils had the 9th ranked national recruiting class this upcoming season. What do you think? What is that new class bringing to the Sun Devils, and is there anybody that you're looking to make a big impact?
Oh well, I'll tell you what, Alyanna, it's a lot of talent coming to the desert, and Arizona State is without a doubt becoming a hockey school, and I think the nation is starting to catch on. And you bring in players like Patrick Kudla, Vito Janssens from Latvia, and even Austin Lemieux, son of Pittsburgh Penguin great Mario Lemieux. So a lot of talent coming in, and it only puts the program on the map and keeps it rising. And this program's starting to find ways to keep getting better. And you bring in young talent like this along with the players that got the experience last year with such a tough schedule, and you think that this talent can do absolutely nothing but improve the team. So the Sun Devils, tough schedule, but it's very possible for this team to improve to 500, especially adding this big core of group youth guys coming in as recruits.
All right, well, that's all I have. Thank you so much for joining me. Great stuff as always.
Thank you, Alyanna.
If you want more on ASU hockey and more from Ethan, make sure to visit us at devilsindetail.com.
How about that? We get a little bit of women's hockey last week. We get some men's hockey this week. I think it's fair to say that hockey season is officially back.
Right? In the desert, nonetheless.
The ice can't melt when you're inside.
I suppose so. All right, well, that's it from us. For more content, make sure to check us out at devilsindetail.com or follow us on Twitter at devils_detail. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.